Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one we have a bunch of new card reveals for the set The Glory of Team Rocket, which is of course going to be Destined Rivals in the West. And to be honest, before today's reveal I was getting a little bit concerned with this set, just because a lot of the cards looked fairly underwhelming and there was a distinct lack of actual Team Rocket card reveals. There was a lot of just like generic Pokemon reveals like Regirock EX, and I like Regirock a lot, but the card wasn't very good and it wasn't a Team Rocket's Pokemon. So we finally got a bunch of new Team Rocket Pokemon to take a look at. So first up is we have Moltres EX, which is quite interesting. Now, it is worth noting that only Moltres got an EX. There's an Articuno and a Zapdos, but because Zapdos got an EX in 151, I think this does make a bit of sense, but maybe Articuno EX will get, an EX card in the future set, which is really cool to see. But yeah, as for Moltres, Flame Barrier is like whatever, like 110, and the next turn you take 50 less damage from attacks. Maybe this could be useful for like tanking a hit from a Charizard or something, but overall nothing too impressive. But then the real spice comes from Evil Burn, which for a fire and triple colorless says discard one Team Rocket's energy from his Pokemon, and if you do, discard your opponent's active Pokemon and all cards attached to it. So if you don't remember what Team Rocket's energy does, it can only be attached to a Team Rocket Pokemon, and it provides two in any combination of Dark and Psychic energy, which is interesting because it effectively means you still have to pay the Fire Energy in the attack cost, and you still have to pay the other colorless, and then you have to have a Team Rocket energy on top of that. So this is a wee bit expensive, but I think with some fiddling around with, some creative energy acceleration like Crispin, I do think this could be quite potent, especially in some kind of control style build. Maybe you run this in a Charizard deck to charge up some of the energy, and then you like attach your Team Rocket's energy after that. I feel like this could have some serious implications, but yeah, honestly seems pretty solid overall and definitely a very strong effect to see on a basic EX. Next up, we have Articuno. Now, Articuno is really interesting because it has the ability to resist and Veil, prevent all effects of your opponent's Pokemon's attacks done to your basic Team Rocket's Pokemon in play. Damage isn't an effect, of course, and then Dark Frost does 60, but if it has a Team Rocket energy attached to it, it does 60 more. So I think the attack is pretty bad. Okay, that's a Team Rocket energy plus a Water energy just to do 120. Yeah, not very good. However, the ability is impressive because I'm pretty sure this protects you from Dragapult. At least you're benched, like Team Rocket's Pokemon. So in the Mewtwo deck, I think this will definitely be featured. It also has one retreat cost, so that's cool to see. Often these beefier Pokemon have a higher retreat, so the fact you can still put like an escape board on it is really cool. So Team Rocket's Articuno seems pretty good. Now, Zapdos, I think, might be the weakest. You can move energy off your opponent's active, and then the other attack is still Bad Thunder, which is quite a funny name for an attack. But aside from that, yeah, I don't think Zapdos is very good. But maybe it'll be good one day. Then we have Team Rocket's Coughing and Team Rocket's Wheezing. Super excited for these, and that's partially because I think the artwork just looks amazing. But Team Rocket's Coughing says if this Pokemon is in the active and takes damage from an attack, and often these abilities specify even if it gets KO'd, and this one doesn't, so I'm just going to assume that Coughing actually has to survive to activate Smoke Signal. But if it, takes damage and survives, search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon with Coughing in their names and put them onto your bench. So you can find more Coughings, like Team Rocket's Coughing, but then you can also find just generic Coughing, and you might want to run other Coughings and Weezlings in this deck, because this is actually a Weezing style toolbox deck. It's really cool. So Team Rocket's Weezing for a Dark and a Colorless has the attack Exploding Mob, which does 40 damage for each Pokemon in play with Coughing and Weezing in its name, which is a great attack because not only does it stack for your opponent as well, so if your opponent's also playing this, then you'll just like want to kill each other, which is really funny. But it does mean that for every other just generic Coughing or Weezing, such as the really funny Weezing from 151, you will be doing 40 damage, which is really cool. And then you can use Team Rocket's energy to pay for the attack cost. So honestly, super looking forward to playing this. The artwork's amazing. It's definitely not like super impressive in GLC, like the most you'll ever do is like 80 damage. But I think for standard, this could honestly be a really, really fun budget deck. So yeah, definitely looking forward to playing Weezing on the channel at some point. We also have a Crobat EX line. Now, Zubat isn't doing much, but Golbat is basically a reprint of the Golbat from was it XY? I think it was like Phantom Forces, and then again in Generations. Has the ability Sneaky Bite, which I think is the same name as well. Once your turn, when you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And of course, Crobat EX has a very similar ability. So, really cool to see this come back. I think that one had free retreat. This one doesn't, which is a bit of a rough patch. But honestly, still a very potent ability. Now, Pokemon have, of course, gotten a lot bigger since the XY era. Like Crobat, I think with Landorus EX, correct me if I'm wrong, used to be a really, really good deck in XY, and then like the Frogadier, which had the exact same ability in the Sun and Moon era. That was also pretty good from what I remember. Like that saw decent success at regionals and things, but like Pokemon have gotten a lot bigger since then. Like in the Sun and Moon era, I think the most HP in the game was like 250, right? So the fact that we're also entering Mega Evolutions later this year, which have like 340, 360. So maybe 2 damage counters isn't enough, but if you're going to be evolving a few of these, then the damage could stack up. So it could be pretty good, yeah. And then we get to Team Rocket's Crobat, which is, I guess, on the fragile end of stage 2s, which is to be expected because, Crobat's a pretty flimsy Pokemon, but does have the ability Bite Around, which is really funny. When you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, so even if you just Rare Candy straight up, or if you just manually evolve, which is probably what you want to do with Sneaky Bite, then you get to put 2 damage counters on each on 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So, I mean, only being able to choose 2 is, I suppose that's still pretty good, right? That's still 4 damage counters you're spreading. Like, you're only softening up 2 Pokemon, but I guess you have to bear in mind if you're going to be setting up multiple Crobats, or at least trying to, then this is still like a fairly potent ability. And then Lethal Return, which is where I think this card has the most source, although it's only doing 120 damage. You can put this Pokemon into your hand and discard all cards attached to it. So you do have to discard the energy, which is a bit of a bummer. But of course, you could then promote things like Mimikyu or maybe like Petulant if you're playing like a poison build. So there's definitely some fun ideas for this. There's also an item card that might help you out with the damage later on, we'll reveal. So yeah, Team Rocket's Crobat honestly seems like a lot of fun as a rogue deck. Probably nothing too crazy as it stands, but could definitely see this being a solid B tier deck, maybe C tier. Also, we have Team Rocket's Sneasel before we get on to the trainers. No Weavile, so maybe it's just a Sneasel for the set. But Backstab for 2 Dark Energy does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon for each damage counter already on that Pokemon, which is still a fairly strong effect, right? Because you're going to be using Crobat, you're going to be using Golbat. These will stack up eventually. So Sneasel could be a very nice single prize option. Maybe your opponent also tries to wall you out with a Cornerstone Ogerpon. Then, you could start attacking their bench with Sneasel or something. Just food for thought. But yeah, it's a bit fragile, but yeah, no Buddy Puff in here, sadly, which is really annoying. That was definitely intentional on their part. But aside from that, it's a very fun card. Then we get to the good stuff. So we've got Team Rocket's Great Ball, which is basically just capturing Aroma. So, if you're familiar with that card from Sword and Shield, flip a coin if heads, search your deck for an Evolution Team Rocket, and if tails, you get to search your deck for a basic Team Rocket's Pokemon instead. So basically just like a 3 of or a 4 of in every Team Rocket deck that's playing Evolution and Basics, If you're just playing Basics, then maybe Nest Ball and Poffins are just better, but I think if you're running Evolutions, this is kind of just a 3 of, really. So really nice to see. And if you're playing Crobat, like Crobat's probably going to be a very heavy evolution line as well. So I'd probably just run 4 of these. Then we get to my personal favorite card reveal here. In fact, I would honestly go as far as to say this has been my favorite card reveal of the year, to be honest. This is like my most anticipated card from the set, and I'm not exaggerating. Team Rocket's Venture Bomb says flip a coin. If heads, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So that's 20 damage if you flip heads. But if you flip tails, put 2 damage counters on your active Pokemon. I really, 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 really like this card for a number of reasons. First of all, I think it's just a bit funny. Like there's a chance this will not work for you and you'll go to tails. But even then, there's just so many different applications for this card. Like if you flip tails, sometimes you might even prefer that because then you can activate things like Monkey Dory, my personal favorite budget deck, Dodge Rio, other spread decks that might just want to activate Monkey Dory and Frostlass, but also maybe they want the extra 2 damage counters. Think of all the Pokemon in Standard that might be 2 damage short of being really good. Well, now there's a chance that they can be played. What happens if you play like 3 or 4 of these at once? there's a huge chance you'll be able to take a prize card that way. But there's also a chance, you'll end up doing like 60, 80 damage to your own active Pokemon. There's so many different applications for this card. I'm honestly really excited. And honestly, I'm surprised they brought this back. I think I brought it back, brought it up, yeah, in the video that I did a while back talking about potential Team Rocket's Pokemon that could get reprinted, because this was actually a real card back in the day. This is a reprint. So it's really cool to see that this is actually coming back. But yeah, honestly, I can honestly see myself putting this in most of my decks. Things like Hydreigon or even Tyranitar that just want a little bit of extra damage here and there, maybe even Dondozo, Tatsugiri, just because you're doing a bit less damage than most decks in Standard. So honestly, really, really excited for this card. Definitely looking forward to playing it. Then we've got some few trainers which are really good as well, though. Team Rocket's Petrol. Yeah, that's certainly a name. I'm pretty sure it's probably pronounced something like Petrel or something. Petrel makes more sense, I guess, but I'm just going to be calling him Petrol from now on. Search your deck for a trainer card, reveal it, and put it in your hand. So this is literally just Skylar, but it's, I guess, a worse version of Arvin, unless you want a stadium. But we do have to remember there's also an item card releasing in the set, which allows you to search your deck for Team Rocket supporters. So it definitely has its niche uses. I think this could be like a 1-of or a 2-of in Team Rocket's decks. Typically you'll just rely on Arvin to find Red Candy, but I think you may as well run 1 or 2 Petrols in your deck. Then we've got Team Rocket's Proton, which is a very, very good card. If you go first, you may use this card during your first turn, which is a bit scary. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Team Rocket's Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand, which is a great effect. Not onto the bench, just into your hand, so you can use them. So things like those Coughings that we talked about earlier, the Mewtwo's, the Tarantulas that you'll need for that deck, the Zubats, get them all out. And because you can use it going first, what you can then do is play 4 copies of that item that lets you search your deck for Team Rocket supporter, and you'll essentially have 4 outs to this. Like, you don't need things like the minion, even though that's already been rotated. You'll be able to just use that item, find this card going first, and then set up 3 basics. So, yeah, in decks that don't really rely on Puffin, this is very, very good. So, yeah, very much looking forward to these cards. I still think Venture Bomb is my favorite card reveal, though. It's just such a fun card. So many different uses for it. But honestly, Crobat seems like a really solid rogue deck. Weezing seems really funny, so I'm looking forward to playing another Weezing deck in Standard, and Moltres might have some future control applications. But yeah, it's been Ember Power. Let me know what you think about these new card reveals down below. Will you be playing any of these cards, and has this made you, like me, more excited for the glory of Team Rocket? And yeah, thank you for watching.